Welcome back, everybody, to linuxacademy.com. My name is Terry, and in today's course, we continue our preparation for the Linux Foundation Certified System Administration exam. Today's video, we're going to continue on the network administration track, and we're going to be talking about how to monitor network performance. So if you've been around Linux for a while, you're probably familiar with the good old handy netstat command. And the netstat command can give us a large variety of ways to monitor our network. However, in modern distributions, netstat has been deprecated. It's becoming obsolete. And it's being replaced by a new utility called SS. And SS really stands for socket statistics. It's very similar to netstat, but it can display more TCP and state information than most of the other tools that you would use for network type access. So if we take a look at the SS tool, we can do a man SS. And again, this is one of the things that you'll want to do when you involve yourself with any new tool is you'll want to take a look at the man page for that tool. And it'll just give you a long list of options that are available for the SS command along with a number of examples. So let's take a look at some of those. One of the examples to take a look at, we'll do an SS-T and a -A. So what this does is it shows all TCP ports or sockets that are open on our server. So we can see that we have ports 4935, 5441, we have SSH. So why do some of them have names or text with them rather than the port? Well, if the port is a known port with a function associated with it, then Linux will try to tell you, hey, I know that this particular thing is SSH, or I know that this particular thing is SMTP. But it doesn't necessarily know what port 47781 or 38076, and those are generally ports that are doing other things. Whether that's incoming or outgoing, there's always a port that's associated with some kind of connection on our system. So here, the first column shows the TCP state. The second and the third column display the amount of data that's queued for receipt or transmit, and the fourth and fifth columns show the source and destination sockets of each of the connections. So what if I want to know what all active TCP ports are with their timers? Well, all we have to do is change the SS-T-A. Let's go ahead and clear our screen and do an SS8 or SS-T-O. And we'll see that we have one established connection. And in the second field, we've got a timer. And then it tells us in the first value of the first connection the number of minutes or seconds until the next keep alive or the next expected probe will be sent. So since it's a connection that's being kept alive, we can assume that it's an inactive connection, and we could kill the process after finding its process ID if we wanted to. If I want to filter connections by socket, for example, so if I want to know just what's listening on port 22, I can do an SS-TN, and then I have to tell it the port that I want is equal to, and then a colon, and the port that I want to listen for. I have to find a port that it's actually listening in under. So in this case, we're not running a web service. SSH doesn't have an active connection that's established. I've got an active connection to this particular local VM from 192.168.1.90 on port 38076. So it will tell us what we have either established or open based on the port that we can take a look at. So once I know what I have running on the system and what might be listening based on the ports that are available, one of the things that can be done to your system is tools are often used to scan your system to determine what ports may be running. So you can use the SS tool to list all of the ports that might be listening on your system so that we can monitor how our system is running and what we have running on the system itself. A lot of times what you'll want to do as a system administrator is you'll want to do defensive tactics for your system. The best defense is for you to understand how your system is running. So a very common tool that as a system administrator that you might want to know is, from a network performance and availability perspective, what's running on my system. Well, there's a utility called Nmap that of course you can run on your system, and it will tell you a large number of things. You do have to make sure it's installed. We can do a yum install on Nmap, which will put that particular package on our system. And Nmap, again, will link into the network performance of our system. Nmap has a large number of options for it that will tell you a whole bunch about your system. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. If I just do a Nmap-A, it will tell me that I didn't give it a target. So let's give it a localhost, myself. I'm saying at this point, scan my OS and give me a trace route and everything that is running on my system in terms of ports. So it tries to do a deep scan of the system and tells me things about my particular system. Nmap is reporting on localhost, that it's up, that it's able to determine that port 22, 25, 111, and 631 are currently running. 5000 is also open on my system. It's able to pull back the TCP/IP fingerprint. It's able to determine that the network distance to localhost is 0 hops because it's local. And then it tells me that I've scanned a single IP address and it was scanned in 20 seconds. Now, what if I want to scan what ports are open in a remote host? I would just give it an IP, or I would give it a name to scan. Now, it's considered bad form to do an Nmap on a network where the system administrator of that network or that IP or server doesn't know that you're scanning. So try to keep these to a minimum without informing the administrator of the network that you're doing. In fact, if you're working in AWS, even on a local host, running an Nmap scan on anything other than localhost violates the acceptable use policy. So in this case, we're going to do a -A-SS, and all the SS does is send what's called a TCP SYN scan, and it prevents Nmap from completing that three-way TCP handshake and doesn't leave any logs on the target machine. So if you're trying to do the same kind of a scan without leaving any trace of the scan that you've done, then this can be done to your system as well as it can be done to other systems. This will also tell you from a network performance standpoint how well your system is performing and responding to TCP connection attempt requests. So in this case, it did take 20 seconds to complete, and I found the same information. However, this information wouldn't have been logged on the remote system. In this case, I am scanning it on a local system. So it gives us information not only about the availability of ports, but the performance of my system in terms of what's running on it and how long it takes to respond to network events. Finally, if I just want to see what my system is doing in terms of IP traffic on my network, there's a couple of different tools we can use. We can use what's called iptraf, which you'll need to install sudo yum install iptraf. And iptraf is more than a network performance tool. It tells you exactly what happens to be going on your network. So if you do an iptraf, you can just get an IP traffic monitor or general interface statistics, and it will tell you from a packet-based perspective what you've got going on your system. So we've got activity of 2.4 kilobits per second on the ETH0, which happens to be my only active network interface. I can also use another utility called dstat that just run on itself will tell me information about CPU, disk, and net every second. But if you'll see right in the middle, we've got the send and receive network totals on a second-by-second basis for what happens to be running on our system. So these are tools that not only give you the information about what is running on your system from a network perspective, what's listening and how long it takes those system services to respond for network requests, as well as how others might be trying to exploit what you might have listening on your system. You'll also be able to use these tools and utilities to monitor your network traffic, either at an overall bandwidth perspective or to see what IP addresses and connections are coming into your system. So for monitoring network performance on your Linux system, that's all there is to it. My name is Terry for Linux Academy.